Welcome to all of you. Myself Professor S.R. Zakne, Assistant Professor of Agronomy at Sadguru College of Agriculture, Mirzgaon. Today we will discuss about the lecture number 16, that is factors affecting on watershed management. There are different factors which affecting on the watershed management. These factors are firstly the watershed character. Under the different watershed characters are there. First one is the size and shape, then second one is the topography, third is the soil, and fourth one is a relief. Then the second, that is the climatic characteristic. In climatic characteristic there are two factors that affect on the watershed management, that is first one is the precipitation, second one is the amount and intensity of rainfall. Then third, that is the watershed operation. Fourth one is the land use pattern. In that there are two factors, that is first one vegetative cover and second one is the density. Then next factor, that is the social status of inhabitability, and last one, that is the water resource and their capabilities. So these are the various factors that affect on the watershed management. Firstly we will discuss about the watershed characters. In that there are different watershed characters are there. In that firstly the physiographic characteristic. In that first characteristic is the shape of watershed. So the watershed differ in their shape based on the morphometric parameters like the geology as well as the structure. So the shape of watershed mainly based on the parameter like the geology as well as the shape of geology and the structure of the watershed. Then the shape of watershed has the dominant effect on the characteristic of the hydrograph of watershed, such as peak flow, overland flow, and base of the hydrograph, that means we call as a runoff type. So the shape of watershed which has the dominant effect on the different characteristics of the hydrograph, such as the peak flow of the runoff water, then overland flow as well as the base of the hydrograph. So this is the first characteristic as a physiographic characteristic, that is the shape of the watershed. Then second one, that is the size. The size of watershed, which is governed by the size of stream or river and the development and management work which is taken in that watershed management program. Basically the size of watershed that is affected by the stream of the size of stream or the size of the river. Then for minor irrigation project, the size may be few hundred square kilometer. So the first type of the irrigation project, that is the minor irrigation project, and for that purpose the size of the watershed that is it may be few hundred square kilometer. Then the second one, that is for the tank or the pond irrigation, the size is just few square kilometers. And third one, in watershed management work in a hilly or the undulating topography, the size of watershed may be even much smaller than the other two types of the watershed project. Then the management of precipitation as well as the water retention, then drainage from the watershed complex for the bigger size of the watershed. So this is the second characteristic, that is the size of watershed. Then the size of watershed, that is basically depend on the size of stream or the size of the river. Then the third characteristic, that is the slope. So this slope controls the rainfall distribution and the movement, then land utilization as well as the watershed behavior. Then by considering the slope of the watershed, if the slope of watershed is more, in that case the velocity of the runoff water is more and hence the flood water drains very quickly. If the velocity or the slope of watershed is more, in that the velocity of runoff water is more, and due to that the flood water that is drain very quickly, that means the excess water that is removed very quickly or within a very short period of time. Then If the slope of the watershed is more, then it results in the higher peak discharge. Then it also reduces the infiltration, that means the most of the water which is drains out or removes quickly. Then if the slope of watershed is more, it increases the soil transportation, means most of the soil particles uh, which are flows through the flow of the runoff water. Then if the slope of watershed is more, it is not beneficial in the watershed development project. Then next characteristic, that is the drainage. The stream order or the drainage pattern and drainage density have the profound influence on the watershed as to runoff, infiltration, as well as the land management practices also. Basically, the drainage determine the flow characteristic as well as the erosion behavior of the stream. Then if the drainage density is more, then peak runoff is also more. Then if the drainage density of drainage is more, in that case also the runoff flow is more, which is takes place. Then next one, that is the physiography. The type of land, its altitude, and the physical disposition immensely speak about the watershed as to the climate and planning the activities in the greening, that means the planting of the trees. Then hilly track could be useful mainly for the forestry. Those soils which having the hilly track or the slope of land is more, then it is mainly useful for the planting of the forest trees. Then the plains of the populated areas that could be utilized for the agricultural crop. Then those soils which are plain or the level one, that in that case it is used for the cultivation of the various agricultural crops. Then next one, that is the land use. Then the land in watershed is used for the numerous purposes such as the dwelling houses, then cultivation, livestock, water harvesting, as well as road, as well as the railways. Again, the land use pattern in the watershed development program, which can be carried out in the various purposes, such as it is also used for the dwelling houses. Then it can be also used for cultivating the various crop, as it includes the various agronomical crop as well as the horticultural crops. Again, that land can be utilized for the rearing of the livestock, and for rearing of the livestock it required the large amount of the fodder for their rearing. For that purpose the land is also utilized. Then again, those land which is not utilized for taking the any type of the cultivation, that can be utilized for the water harvesting, that means that is utilized for collecting the excess or the runoff water after the rainfall. Then again, the remaining lands, that is used for the construction of the road as well as the railway track. So in this way, the land which is utilized for the different purposes in the watershed area. Then the land use affect the runoff rate also. Then land which is utilized for the different purposes, as it affect the runoff rate, that means the runoff flow which is decreases due to the land which is utilized for the various purposes. Then next one, that is the vegetation cover. So the vegetation cover that retards the flow and increases the infiltration and interception, thereby reducing the peak flow. If the vegetation is more on the surface of soil, that it retard, that means it reduces the flow of the runoff water and it increases the infiltration rate, that means it increases the flow of water into the soil. Then it also increases the interception, and thereby it helps to reduces the peak flow of the runoff water, that means the velocity of the runoff water that is decreases when the vegetation cover is present on the soil surfaces. Then the vegetation cover protect the soil erosion, that means if the small vegetation or the grasses which are present on the soil surfaces, then it also cover the soil surface, and due to that the soil erosion is reduced. Then detailed information on the vegetation helps in the choosing type, mode and the manner of the greening in the watershed. Again, if we know the detailed information on the vegetation, and due to that it helps in the choosing the type, then mode as well as the manner of the greening in the watershed. Thus the vegetation cover plays the very important role in reducing the velocity of runoff, and it increases the infiltration rate as well as the interception, and they also reduces the peak flow of the runoff water. Then it protect the soil erosion. Then the next physiographic characteristic, that is the soil. The soil such as the sand absorb the large part of the runoff water, so the rate of flow is less. So if the soil which is a sand type of the soil which present, in that case it absorb the large part of the runoff water, and the rate of flow of water that is very less or the minimized. That means the most of the water which is absorbed through the sand soil. Then clay soil produces the more flow as its absorption is very less. If the type of soil which is the clay soil or the black soil, in that case the flow of water which is more, and the absorption of water into that black soil or the clay soil which is very less. So the sand soil plays a very important role in the absorption of the peak flow of the runoff water, and it also reduces the flow rate of the runoff water. Then soil parameters such as the depth, nature, then moisture and the fertility that determines the type of crop that can be grown. So the selection of crop in the soil, that is depend on the different soil parameters such as this parameter which includes the depth of soil, then nature of soil, that means the which type of the soil is there, and the moisture holding capacity, that means the availability of moisture into the soil, and their fertility status, that also determines the which type of the crop that can be taken in that type of the soil which is decided. Then next one, that is the geology. So in geology, the rocks and their structure control the formation of watershed itself, because their nature determines the size, shape, physiography, drainage as well as the groundwater conditions. So the rock, the type of rock and their structure, that controls all the characters that determines the size of the watershed, then shape of the watershed, then physiography as well as the drainage and the groundwater condition of that watershed area. Then geological condition that affect the runoff of watershed. If there are some cracks in rocks joining the surface water and the groundwater, a part of water flows quickly underground. If the geological condition that affect the runoff of the watershed, again if the cracks which are observed in that soil, in that case also the part of water that flows quickly in underground. Then the lakes, storages, then swamp hold a part of the excess runoff. That means the areas like the lakes, then different types of the storage structure as well as the swamp atmosphere that can hold the most part of the excess rainfall. So the geology also plays the very important role in the watershed management project. Then next one, that is the hydrology. The availability, quality and distribution of the surface water, that is the basic to the final goal of growing the greenery in the watershed. So the availability, quality as well as the distribution of surface water, that decides the growing which type of the crop that can be grown in the watershed area. Then the hydrological parameters such as the intensity and the duration of rainfall help in the quantification of water available in the watershed. There are different hydrological parameters such as the intensity as well as the duration of the rainfall that help in identification of the water available in the watershed area. If the rainfall continues for longer period with a low intensity, evaporation and the percolation, it increases but the runoff is very less. Further, it may cause the landslide in the sloping hillside areas. Then next one, that is the hydrogeology. It is one of the important physiographic characteristic. the groundwater demand for the irrigation, then farm plantation, drinking water, domestic use and the industrial use is more, as it is relatively less polluted as well as the pure. That means the groundwater demand, whatever the water which is present in the soil surface, their demand for the irrigation, then the farm plantation, that means the growing of the various trees on the farm, then drinking water, that means the water which is used for the household purpose, again it is utilized for the domestic use and industrial use, is more when this water is less polluted and it is very pure. Then the information about the aquifer such as a nature, thickness and characteristics should be known for the better planning of the watershed. Then we should know the information about the different types of the aquifer such as the nature, their thickness as well as the different characteristics. That is very important for the better planning of the watershed management. Then we have to discuss about the different climatic factors that affect on the watershed management. If the climatic condition is dry before the rainfall, the loss of runoff is more due to the infiltration as well as the evapotranspiration. That means before the receiving of the rainfall, the climatic condition is very dry. In that condition, the loss of runoff is more, and due to the infiltration, that means the most of the water which is infiltrated into the soil and it is lost through the evapotranspiration. Then climatic conditions depend on the temperature, wind velocity and humidity. Then transpiration, evaporation and the evapotranspiration, which are mainly depend on the climatic conditions. So the climatic condition basically depend on the temperature, wind velocity as well as the humidity. Then basically the three factors such as the temperature, wind velocity and humidity that decides the climatic condition, and the different processes as like the transpiration, evaporation and evapotranspiration, they are basically depend on the climatic condition. Then the more the intensity of rainfall in the watershed, the more is the peak flow disposal from the area. That means if the intensity of rainfall is more in the watershed area, there is the peak flow of the disposal from the area that can be takes place. If the duration of the rainfall is less, then the time taken to dispose with the lower peak flow is also less. That means if the duration of the rainfall is very less, that means the rainfall received is very within a short period of time. In that condition, the time taken to dispose with the lower peak flow is also very less. Then in this figure that shows the watershed rainfall moving the downstream side as well as the watershed rainfall that moving the upstream side. That means if the rain moves downstream, the peak stream flow of the watershed that can be quickly occur, and if the rain moves upstream, then the peak flow rate is very late. So these two figure that comparatively shown the peak flow rate that occurs during the short period or the more time period, and due to that the watershed occurs very quickly or very late. Then again we have to discuss about the some socio-economical characteristics, and these characteristics which are also affecting on the watershed management. Then a survey of people living in the watershed should be made regarding their needs and wants, then economic condition, then health and hygiene, then cattle, then different farming practices and the participation in the watershed management program. That means a survey of people, those living in the watershed, that can be made according to the different character, as first one is the needs and wants of that people, then the economic condition of that people, then what is the health and the hygienic condition, then the livestock, that means the cattle health, then the different farming practices as well as the participation of people in the watershed management program. Then the demographic profile, then social stratification, then attitude and the behavior of the community that affect on the watershed management to a great extent. So whatever the demographic profile of that people, then sociological stratification as well as the attitude and the behavior of that people or the community that affect on the watershed management program in the great extent. Thank you.